From colleagues to soulmates, a billionaire CEO who fell for his assistant on a business trip. The coffee was wrong again. Christopher Mitchell stood at his office window, watching Charleston's morning fog, and knew his fourth assistant in 6 months wouldn't last. He was a 37-year-old billionaire CEO who'd built a $3 billion empire, and he couldn't keep an assistant for more than 3 weeks. Until Jennifer Kirk walked in with the right coffee and changed absolutely everything. Welcome back to CJ Stories, where we bring you emotional and heart-touching stories that speak to the soul. If you're just joining us for the first time, you're welcome to this wonderful big family. We're so glad to have you here. Please make sure to watch till the end, and if today's story moves you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, give us a like, and share this video with your family and loved ones. Now, let's dive into today's story. The coffee was wrong again. Christopher Mitchell stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his corner office on the 42nd floor, watching Charleston's morning fog lift over the harbor, and knew without looking that his assistant had brought him the wrong order. Not because she was incompetent. Because she was new. The fourth new assistant in 6 months, and he could already feel the familiar pattern beginning. They'd last 3 weeks, maybe 4, before the pressure broke them or they decided he was too demanding or too cold or too whatever excuse they needed to walk away. He was 37 years old, born in 1987, and he'd built Mitchell Global Solutions from a one-room startup into a $3 billion enterprise in less than a decade. He hadn't done it by accepting mediocrity or wrong coffee orders. "Mr. Mitchell?" The voice behind him was steady. Not nervous. That was different. "I know you didn't ask for hazelnut, and I know the temperature's probably off by about 15 degrees based on the condensation pattern on the cup." Christopher turned. The woman standing in his doorway wasn't holding coffee. She held a leather portfolio in one hand and her phone in the other, and she was looking at him with an expression that wasn't quite amusement but wasn't intimidation either. "I'm Jennifer Kirk," she said. "Your new executive assistant as of this morning, June 1st, 2024. I'm 34 years old, I've been working in corporate management for 9 years, and I spent my weekend reading every interview you've ever given, every quarterly report Mitchell Global has published since 2019, and I watched you send away 3 assistants in the past 6 months for various infractions that all boiled down to one thing. They didn't pay attention." Christopher said nothing. Just watched her. Jennifer stepped into the office. "You take your coffee black, extra hot, from the place on Broad Street, not the chain downstairs. You have a standing order for Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings at 7:15, but you skip it on Tuesdays because you have breakfast meetings, and you skip Thursdays because that's when you go for your run an hour later than usual. You don't drink it to wake up. You drink it because your father used to make it that way, and it reminds you why you started this company in the first place." The silence in the office felt enormous. "The hazelnut disaster is still downstairs with reception," Jennifer continued. "I had them hold it when I saw the order. This is what you actually drink." She pulled a proper cup from behind the portfolio. "Black. Extra hot. From Myers on Broad Street. And before you ask how I knew about your father, you mentioned it exactly once, in an interview with Forbes in 2021. You said he taught you that consistency in small things builds discipline for large ones." Christopher took the coffee. It was exactly the right temperature. "Most people don't read back issues from 3 years ago," he said. "Most people don't want to work for you badly enough," Jennifer replied. She set the portfolio on his desk. "Your itinerary for the week. I flagged 3 conflicts that HR didn't catch, rescheduled the vendor call that was going to run into your personal time, and I took the liberty of adding a reminder that your mother's birthday is next Sunday in case you want me to arrange flowers or a gift." Christopher opened the portfolio. Every single item she'd mentioned was there, color-coded, cross-referenced, and annotated with details his previous assistants would never have thought to include. "You've been on the job for exactly 45 minutes, he said. 47, Jennifer corrected. "I got here early." He looked up at her then. Really looked. She was beautiful in a way that seemed almost beside the point. Natural hair pulled back in a style that was professional but not severe, warm brown skin, dark eyes that met his directly without challenge but without deference either. She wore a navy suit that was expensive enough to belong in this office but not so expensive that it screamed trying too hard. Everything about her said competence. Confidence. Control. "Why do you want this job?" Christopher asked. "You're overqualified. You could be managing your own department somewhere." "I could," Jennifer agreed. "But I don't want to manage a department. I want to learn how to build something that matters from someone who's actually done it. You've turned Mitchell Global into one of the most innovative logistics companies in the country. You've revolutionized supply chain management. You've done it without cutting corners or exploiting workers, which is basically unheard of in this industry. And according to every person I talk to who's ever done business with you, you're difficult and demanding and you don't tolerate excuses, but you're never unfair." She paused. "I can handle difficult. I can handle demanding. What I can't handle is working for someone who doesn't actually care about doing things right. So if you're going to send me away like the others, do it now. But if you're willing to give me a real chance, I promise you won't regret it." Christopher had built a career on reading people. On knowing within minutes whether someone had the steel to last in his world. He'd been wrong 3 times in 6 months, and it had cost him time and efficiency and energy he couldn't afford to waste. But something in Jennifer's steady gaze made him want to take the risk. "The business trip to Savannah," he said. "We leave Wednesday morning. 3 days, back-to-back meetings with potential investors and existing clients. Long hours. High pressure. No room for mistakes." "I'm already packed," Jennifer said. "I haven't told you what to pack. Business formal for the investor meetings, business casual for the client dinners, something shukha the River Street environment in case any of the evening events are less formal. Comfortable shoes because we'll be walking. Backup files for every presentation on both laptop and tablet. Your preferred hotel is the Bohemian, but it was booked, so I reserved us suites at the mansion on Forsyth Park instead. Better amenities, quieter location, closer to 3 of your 4 meeting sites." Christopher felt something shift in his chest. Something that felt dangerously close to hope. "You changed my hotel reservation without asking me?" "I changed it assuming you care more about efficiency than habit," Jennifer said. "Was I wrong?" She wasn't wrong. The Bohemian was familiar, but the mansion made more sense for this trip. She'd done in one morning what his previous assistants hadn't managed in weeks. She'd anticipated his needs instead of waiting to be told. "You start at $75,000, Christopher said. "But if you last 6 months, we renegotiate. If you make it a year, you get profit sharing." "That's generous. That's practical. Good assistants are worth more than most executives. Great ones are irreplaceable." He took a drink of the coffee. "Still perfect. Don't make me regret this, Ms. Kirk." "I won't." Jennifer picked up the empty portfolio. "Your first meeting is in 20 minutes. The Hendricks contract people. They're going to try to negotiate down on the sustainability clauses. I pulled the data that shows why that's non-negotiable and sent it to your tablet." She was almost to the door when Christopher spoke again. "Jennifer." She turned. "Thank you," he said. "For the coffee." Her smile was small but genuine. "You're welcome, Mr. Mitchell." When she left, the office felt different. Less empty. Christopher looked down at the itinerary she'd prepared, at the meticulous notes and careful planning, and felt something he hadn't felt in months. Relief. Maybe this time would be different. Maybe this time, someone would stay. 3 days later, Jennifer sat in the passenger seat of Christopher's car as they drove through the tree-lined streets of Savannah's historic district, and tried to remember the last time she'd felt this alive. "The Parker meeting went well," Christopher said. He drove the way he did everything else. Focused, efficient, no wasted movement. "You caught the discrepancy in their third-quarter projections. They were counting revenue they haven't secured yet," Jennifer said. "Creative accounting to make their growth look more impressive. Most assistants wouldn't have noticed." "I'm not most assistants." Christopher glanced at her, and Jennifer caught the hint of a smile before he looked back at the road. In 3 days, she'd learned his tells. The slight softening at the corner of his mouth when something pleased him. The way his shoulders dropped half an inch when a meeting went well. The particular silence that meant he was processing something important. She'd also learned that Christopher Mitchell wasn't cold. He was careful. There was a difference. "Dinner tonight is less formal," he said as they pulled up to the mansion on Forsyth Park. "The Hendricks people want to celebrate closing the contract. River Street, seafood, probably too much wine." "You don't drink much," Jennifer observed. "How do you know that?" "Because in 3 days of dinner meetings, you've had half a glass of wine total, and you never finish it. You stay sharp." Christopher put the car in park but didn't get out immediately. "My father drank," he said quietly. "Not often, but when he did, he made bad decisions. I watched him lose nearly everything because he trusted the wrong person at the wrong time while he was too drunk to see clearly." He looked at her. "I decided a long time ago that I'd never let anything cloud my judgment that way." It was the most personal thing he'd shared since she'd started. Jennifer felt the weight of it. "That's why you're so careful with people," she said. "With assistants." "I need someone I can trust completely," Christopher said. "Someone who'll tell me the truth even when it's not what I want to hear. Someone who pays attention to details because details are what separate success from disaster." His gaze held hers. "Someone like you." The air in the car felt charged. Jennifer's heart did something complicated in her chest. "I won't let you down," she said. I know. Christopher opened his door. That's what scares me. Why would that scare you? He looked at her over the roof of the car. Because the last time I trusted someone completely, she walked away the moment things got difficult. And I'm not sure I survived it as well as I pretend I did. Before Jennifer could respond, he was heading toward the hotel entrance, and the moment fractured into movement and logistics and the careful professional distance they'd maintained for 3 days. But something had shifted. That night, Jennifer stood on the balcony of her suite, looking out over Forsyth Park's fountain and Spanish moss, and let herself admit the dangerous truth she'd been avoiding since that first morning in Christopher's office. She wasn't just impressed by him. She wasn't just professionally challenged and intellectually engaged. She was falling for him. For his brilliant mind and his careful heart. For the way he demanded excellence but never cruelty. For the grief he carried so quietly that most people never saw it. For the man he was when he thought no one was paying attention. Her phone buzzed. A text from Christopher. Dinner tomorrow is at 7. Wear something you feel confident in. These clients respond well to strength, and you have it in abundance. Jennifer read it 3 times. Looked at the words, "You have it in abundance," and felt warmth spread through her chest. She typed back, "Thank you. I'll be ready." His response came immediately, "You're always ready. It's one of the things I'm learning to count on." Jennifer set down her phone and closed her eyes. This was dangerous. He was her boss. This was her career. She'd worked too hard and sacrificed too much to risk it all on feelings that might not be reciprocated. But when she opened her eyes and looked out at Savannah's beautiful night, all she could think about was the way Christopher had looked at her over the car and said, "Someone like you," as if she was exactly what he'd been searching for. As if maybe, just maybe, he was falling too. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more emotional and heart-touching stories that speak to the soul, and share your thoughts in the comments to tell us which story you want to hear next. Now let us continue. 2 weeks after they returned from Savannah, on a humid Tuesday morning in mid-June, Jennifer walked into Christopher's office with his schedule and found him staring at his computer screen with an expression she'd never seen before. Uncertainty. "Mr. Mitchell?" He looked up. "The Singapore deal. Chen Industries pulled out." Jennifer set down the coffee and moved around the desk to look at the screen. The email was polite but firm. Chen Industries had decided to go with a competitor. No explanation beyond corporate restructuring and strategic realignment. "They were our anchor investor for the Pacific expansion," Christopher said quietly. "Without them, the whole project loses credibility with the other investors." 6 months of work just vanished. Jennifer scanned the email again, then pulled up her tablet. Chen's CFO is Michael Porter. He spoke at a logistics conference in Atlanta last month. I heard him present. And he's not strategic. He's scared. His entire presentation was about risk mitigation and conservative growth. She looked at Christopher. Chen didn't pull out because they found something better. They pulled out because someone convinced them this was too risky. Christopher leaned back in his chair. "Donovan. Your competitor?" "My former business partner." Christopher's jaw tightened. "We started Mitchell Global together back in 2015, but he wanted to cut corners I wasn't willing to cut. We split in 2018 when I was 30 years old. He's been trying to undermine me ever since." Jennifer sat on the edge of the desk. It was more casual than she'd ever been with him, but something about his vulnerability right now made formality feel wrong. "So we go around Chen," she said. "Who else in the Pacific market has the capital and the vision? No one with Chen's reputation. Then we build a different kind of credibility. Chen is old money, established networks, traditional approach. What if we pitch this as the innovative alternative? Young companies, tech-forward thinking, sustainable practices that appeal to the next generation of investors." Christopher looked at her. Really looked. "That would require completely restructuring the investor package." "Yes. We'd need new data, new projections, new pitch materials. The presentation to the board is in 3 weeks." "I know. Jennifer, that's hundreds of hours of work." She met his gaze steadily. "Then we better get started." Something in his expression shifted. Softened. "Why are you willing to do this?" "Because you built something worth fighting for," Jennifer said simply. "And because I don't believe in letting bullies win." Christopher stood. He was close enough now that she could see the flecks of gray at his temples, smell the subtle cologne he wore, feel the intensity of his focus. "I'll pay you overtime," he said. "I don't want overtime." "Then what do you want?" The question hung between them, loaded with meaning neither of them was ready to name. "I want to help you win," Jennifer said quietly. "That's enough." For a long moment, Christopher didn't move. Then he nodded once, sharp and decisive. "Okay," he said. "Let's burn it down and build it better." They worked late every night that week. Jennifer ordered dinner to the office while Christopher rebuilt financial models. She researched emerging markets while he cold-called potential investors. They debated strategy over Thai food and refined messaging over Italian and built something new from the ashes of the Singapore deal. On Friday night, past 11, Jennifer looked up from her laptop to find Christopher watching her. "What?" she asked. "You're still here." "Of course I'm still here. We're not finished." "Jennifer, it's 11:30 on a Friday night. You should be out with friends. On a date. Living your life." She saved her document and closed the laptop. "This is my life. Right now, this matters." "Why? Why does it matter? Why do you care this much?" Christopher stood and moved to the windows. The Charleston Harbor stretched dark and glittering below them. "Every assistant I've had before you did their job and went home. You're here at midnight on a Friday rebuilding an international expansion package that isn't even technically your responsibility. So I'm asking, why?" Jennifer joined him at the window. Their reflections looked back at them, side by side in the glass. "My father died 3 years ago," she said. "June 2021. I was 31 years old, and I'd spent the last decade working jobs I hated for bosses who didn't care, saving every penny so I could eventually start my own consulting firm. When he got sick, I used all of it. Every dollar. His insurance wouldn't cover the treatment he needed, so I covered it." She watched a boat move slowly across the harbor. "He died anyway," she continued. "And I was broke and exhausted and I had to start over from nothing. I took the first good job I could find, and I told myself that this time, I'd work for someone who actually built things that mattered. Someone who did business the right way. Someone I could believe in." She turned to look at Christopher. "That's you. So when you ask why I care, that's why. Because you're the reason I still believe this world has room for people who refuse to compromise their integrity for profit." Christopher's expression was unreadable. "Your father would be proud of you." "I hope so." Jennifer's voice cracked slightly. "I really hope so. Jennifer." Christopher's hand came up, hesitated, then gently touched her shoulder. The contact was brief but deliberate. "I'm sorry you lost him. And I'm grateful every single day that you walked into my office." The warmth of his hand lingered even after he dropped it. "We should call it a night," Christopher said, but he didn't move away from the window. Didn't move away from her. "Probably," Jennifer agreed. But she didn't move either. "There's something I need to tell you." Christopher's voice was low. "About why I'm so careful. About the person I mentioned in Savannah who walked away. You don't have to. I want to." He turned to face her fully. "Her name was Victoria. We were engaged 7 years ago, back in 2017 when I was 29 and stupid enough to think success meant she'd stay. The company was growing fast, and I was working 18-hour days trying to build something sustainable. She said she understood. Said she supported my vision." His jaw tightened. "Then my father got sick in early 2018. Cancer. I had to split my time between the company and helping my mother take care of him. Victoria lasted 2 months before she told me she didn't sign up to be second priority. She wanted the successful CEO, not the exhausted son watching his father die. She left the ring on my desk and walked out." Jennifer's chest ached. "Christopher. My father died 3 weeks later," he continued. "March 2018. I was 30 years old, and I'd lost both of them within a month. So I made a decision. The company would be enough. Success would be enough. I didn't need people who'd abandon me the moment things got difficult." He looked at her with an intensity that made her breath catch. "But then you showed up," he said quietly. "And you stayed. Through late nights and impossible deadlines and a Singapore deal falling apart. You stayed. And I don't know what to do with that." Jennifer's heart was pounding. They were standing too close. The office was too quiet. Everything about this moment felt like standing on the edge of something vast and terrifying. "Christopher," she said carefully. "I'm your assistant. I know. This is complicated. I know that too. We could ruin everything. Yes." His eyes never left hers. "We could. Or we could be honest about what's happening here and decide together what to do about it." Jennifer should step back. Should reinforce professional boundaries. Should protect her career and her heart and all the sensible things she'd built her life around. Instead, she said, "What is happening here?" Christopher moved closer. Just half a step, but it closed the distance to almost nothing. "I think about you," he said. "Constantly. I notice everything. The way you tap your pen 3 times before you write. How you drink your coffee with exactly 1 sugar. The small smile you get when you've solved a problem no one else saw. I've spent 6 years telling myself I don't need this, don't want this, can't risk this. And then you brought me the right coffee on your first day and I started wondering if maybe I was wrong." Jennifer couldn't breathe. "We work together. We do. I can't lose this job. You won't. Jennifer, if this is just me, if you don't feel it too, we forget this conversation happened and nothing changes. But if you do feel it, he paused. Then we figure it out. Together. Carefully. The right way. She should say no. Should be smart and cautious and protect everything she'd worked for. I feel it, Jennifer whispered. I've felt it since Savannah. Maybe since that first morning when you took the coffee and looked at me like you wanted to believe I might actually stay. Christopher's hand came up to her face, his thumb brushing her cheek with devastating gentleness. I want to kiss you, he said. But not here. Not in the office where it's complicated by power dynamics and professional ethics. If we do this, I want it to be real. Not something we have to hide or feel ashamed of. Then where? Let me take you to dinner tomorrow. A real date. Not business. Just us, as two people who want to know each other outside these walls. His smile was soft and uncertain and completely genuine. Will you let me do that? Jennifer knew this was dangerous. Knew it could end in heartbreak or professional disaster or both. But when she looked at Christopher's careful hope, all she could think was that some risks were worth taking. Yes, she said. I'd like that very much. His smile transformed his entire face. Tomorrow night. 7 o'clock. I'll pick you up. It's a date. Christopher's hand dropped from her face, but his gaze lingered. We should really go home now before I forget all my good intentions about doing this the right way. Jennifer laughed, the sound breaking the tension into something lighter. Probably a good idea. They gathered their things in comfortable silence, but at the elevator, Christopher caught her hand. Jennifer? Thank you. For staying. For caring. For taking a chance on this. She squeezed his hand once before letting go. Thank you for being worth it. The elevator doors closed between them, and Jennifer leaned against the wall, her heart racing with equal parts terror and exhilaration. Tomorrow night, everything would change. She couldn't wait. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more emotional and heart-touching stories that speak to the soul, and share your thoughts in the comments to tell us which story you want to hear next. Now let us continue. Their first real date happened on a Saturday evening in late June, at a small restaurant tucked away on Church Street where the tables were far enough apart for privacy and close enough to candlelight for romance. Christopher picked her up at 7 exactly, and the look on his face when she answered the door made every minute she'd spent getting ready worthwhile. You look beautiful, he said simply. You clean up pretty well yourself, Jennifer replied, taking in the dark suit he wore with easy confidence. Dinner was perfect. They talked about everything except work. Christopher told her about growing up in Charlotte, about his mother who still called him every Sunday, about the childhood dog named Biscuit who'd been his best friend until he was 12. Jennifer shared stories about her father's terrible jokes, her college years studying business management, the trip to Paris she'd taken alone after his death because he'd always wanted to go and never had the chance. So you went for him, Christopher said softly. I went for both of us. Scattered some of his ashes at the Seine. Ate too much bread. Cried in the Louvre. Jennifer smiled. It was exactly what I needed. Christopher reached across the table and took her hand. The gesture felt natural now, easy in a way it hadn't in the office. You're remarkable, he said. You know that? I'm really not. I'm just someone who keeps showing up. That's what makes you remarkable. They walked along the Battery afterward, the Atlantic stretching dark and endless beside them. Christopher's hand found hers again, and Jennifer let herself lean into his side. This is dangerous, she said quietly. I know. People at work will talk. Let them. Christopher stopped walking and turned to face her. Jennifer, I don't want to hide this. I don't want to pretend you're just my assistant when you're so much more than that. But I also don't want to put you in an impossible position. So we do this carefully. Transparently. HR gets informed. Everything stays professional at work. And anyone who has a problem with it can take it up with me. Jennifer looked up at him, at the sincerity in his face, and felt something in her chest unlock. Okay, she said. We do it the right way. The right way, Christopher agreed. Then he kissed her. It was soft and careful and absolutely perfect. Jennifer's hands came up to his chest, feeling his heart beat fast beneath her palms. When they broke apart, Christopher rested his forehead against hers. I'm falling for you, he whispered. I need you to know that. This isn't casual for me. It's not casual for me either, Jennifer said. I'm terrified and hopeful and completely sure this is worth the risk. Then we'll figure it out together. They did figure it out, for 3 beautiful weeks. Christopher informed HR on Monday. They kept things professional at work and personal everywhere else. Jennifer met his mother over brunch, an elegant woman named Margaret who squeezed Jennifer's hand and said, he hasn't smiled like this in years. Thank you for that. Christopher came to her apartment and cooked dinner, surprising her with skills she didn't know he had. They worked late on the Pacific expansion and celebrated small victories with takeout and stolen kisses in his office after everyone else went home. It was perfect. Until the morning of July 15th, when everything fell apart. Jennifer arrived at work to find Christopher's office door closed and voices raised inside. She recognized the second voice immediately. Richard Donovan. The former partner. The competitor who'd sabotaged the Singapore deal. She moved closer to the door. "You're making a mistake, Chris." Donovan's voice was smooth, practiced. "This Pacific expansion is going to bury you. You're overextended, underfunded, and betting everything on investors who'll run the moment things get difficult. I didn't invite you here for business advice, Richard. No, you didn't invite me at all. But when I heard about your little office romance, I thought I should stop by. For old time's sake." Jennifer's blood went cold. "My personal life is none of your concern," Christopher said, ice in his voice. "It is when it affects business. You're dating your assistant, Chris. How do you think that looks to investors? To clients? You're the CEO who preaches integrity and ethics, and you're sleeping with an employee. The optics are terrible. Jennifer is not just an employee. Of course she is. She works for you. You sign her paychecks. You control her career. That's a power imbalance no amount of HR paperwork can erase." Donovan's voice dropped. "I'm not here to lecture you. I'm here to offer you a solution. End it now, quietly, before it becomes a liability. I'll make sure the story doesn't get out. Professional courtesy, for everything we built together. Get out of my office. Think about what you're risking. The board already has concerns about the Pacific expansion. Add a scandal about inappropriate workplace relationships, and they'll lose confidence completely. You'll lose everything you've built. Is she really worth that?" Jennifer's hand was on the door handle before she realized she was moving. She pushed into the office. Both men turned. "Jennifer," Christopher said, warning in his voice. "Mr. Donovan." She kept her voice level, professional. "I'm going to ask you to leave." Donovan smiled. "The assistant speaks. How modern." "I'm not speaking as his assistant. I'm speaking as the woman who's been researching you for the past 3 weeks." Jennifer pulled out her tablet. "Donovan Logistics has lost 4 major clients in the past 6 months. Your stock price has dropped 18%. You're hemorrhaging talent because word's gotten out about your labor practices, and the lawsuit from your former employees is set to go to trial in September." Donovan's smile faded. "You didn't come here out of concern for Christopher," Jennifer continued. "You came here because you're desperate. Because Mitchell Global is thriving while your company circles the drain, and you can't stand it. So you're trying to create doubt and chaos because that's all you have left. Careful, sweetheart. You're out of your depth." "Don't call me sweetheart." Jennifer's voice was steel. "And I'm not out of my depth. I know exactly what you're doing. But it won't work. Christopher has built something real, and you can't tear it down with gossip and manipulation." Donovan looked at Christopher. "You're going to let her fight your battles now?" "I don't need to fight battles that aren't real," Christopher said quietly. "Jennifer's right. You're desperate. And I'm done giving you any more of my time. Leave." Donovan's expression hardened. "This isn't over. When this relationship implodes and takes your company down with it, don't say I didn't warn you." He left, and the office felt poisonous in his wake. Jennifer set down her tablet with shaking hands. "I shouldn't have done that. I overstepped." "You were perfect," Christopher said. But his voice was strained. "Christopher." He moved to the windows, his back to her. "He's right about one thing. The optics are complicated. If the board starts questioning my judgment, if investors get nervous about stability and leadership, the Pacific expansion falls apart. Everything we've worked for." "So what are you saying?" Christopher turned. The expression on his face made Jennifer's stomach drop. "I'm saying maybe we move too fast. Maybe we should take a step back, keep things professional until after the board presentation. Just for a few weeks, until the expansion is secured." "You want to end this?" Jennifer's voice was flat. "I want to protect you. If this blows up, it's your career on the line too. You're the one who'll be labeled as the assistant who slept her way into the CEO's good graces. I won't do that to you. That's not your decision to make for me. Jennifer, please. I'm trying to do the right thing." "The right thing?" Anger flared hot in her chest. "The right thing is to fight for what we have. To tell Richard Donovan and anyone else who has a problem with it that we're two adults who care about each other and it's nobody's business but ours. The right thing is not to let fear and other people's opinions destroy something real." Christopher's jaw tightened. "You don't understand what's at stake." "I understand perfectly. You're scared. Someone left you when things got hard 7 years ago, and you decided that meant you couldn't trust anyone to stay. So the minute there's real pressure, real risk, you pull back. You choose the company over everything else because it's safer. That's not fair. It's completely fair. You told me 3 weeks ago that you were falling for me. You said this wasn't casual. But the moment someone challenges it, you want to hide. You want to make me a secret again. I'm trying to protect both of us. I don't need protection. I need you to trust me. To trust us. Jennifer's voice cracked. But if you can't do that, if you're going to panic every time someone questions this relationship, then maybe Richard's right. Maybe we did move too fast. The silence was devastating. Maybe we did, Christopher said quietly. Jennifer felt something shatter in her chest. Okay. Then I guess we're done here. Jennifer, wait. No. You made your choice. The company matters more. I understand. I'll stay on as your assistant through the board presentation because I'm professional and I keep my commitments. But after that, I'm done. You're quitting? I'm choosing myself. Something I should have done the moment you suggested hiding what we have. Jennifer picked up her tablet. Your first meeting is in 20 minutes. The Morrison contract. I'll have the files ready. Jennifer, please. Let's talk about this. There's nothing left to talk about. You want professional? Fine. That's all you'll get. She walked out of his office and didn't look back, even though every instinct screamed at her to turn around. To fight harder. To make him see what he was throwing away. But Jennifer had learned the hard way that you couldn't make someone choose you. They had to decide you were worth choosing. And Christopher had just made his decision clear. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more emotional and heart-touching stories that speak to the soul, and share your thoughts in the comments to tell us which story you want to hear next. Now let us continue. The next 2 weeks were the longest of Jennifer's life. She showed up every morning at 7:15, delivered Christopher's coffee with perfect professionalism, managed his schedule with flawless efficiency, and felt absolutely nothing. Or at least, that's what she told herself. That the numbness was better than the pain. That professional distance was safer than the vulnerability she'd allowed herself to feel. Christopher didn't push. Didn't try to revisit their conversation. He was polite and respectful and so carefully distant that Jennifer wanted to scream. By the end of July, they'd perfected the art of working together while barely speaking. Everything went through email or brief, clinical exchanges in his office. The warmth that had filled those late nights rebuilding the Pacific expansion was gone, replaced by cold efficiency. It was exactly what Christopher said he wanted. And it was killing both of them. On a Thursday afternoon, Jennifer was organizing files for the board presentation when Christopher's mother called. Jennifer, dear, is Christopher available? He's in a meeting, Mrs. Mitchell. Can I take a message? Margaret was quiet for a moment. Actually, I was hoping to talk to you. Do you have a minute? Jennifer's chest tightened. Of course. Christopher hasn't told me what happened between you two, but I know something did. He's been miserable for 2 weeks. Distracted. Quiet. The way he was after Victoria left. Margaret's voice was gentle. I don't mean to pry, but I wanted you to know that I've never seen my son as happy as he was those 3 weeks you were together. Whatever happened, whatever fear is driving him right now, it's not about you. It's about him being too afraid to believe good things can last. Jennifer's throat closed. Mrs. Mitchell, I appreciate you calling, but this is between Christopher and me. I know. I just wanted you to know that he's worth fighting for. Even when he's being stubborn and scared and pushing away the best thing that's happened to him in years. Margaret paused. My husband, Christopher's father, he was the same way. Terrified of vulnerability. It took me 6 months to convince him that love wasn't a weakness. That letting someone in didn't mean losing yourself. How did you convince him? I didn't. He had to figure it out himself. I just made sure he knew I'd be there when he did. Margaret's voice softened. I think Christopher needs to figure some things out too. But I hope you'll still be there when he does. After they hung up, Jennifer sat at her desk and let herself feel everything she'd been holding back for 2 weeks. The hurt. The anger. The desperate hope that maybe this wasn't really over. Her phone buzzed. A text from her best friend Simone. Coffee tonight? You sound like you need it. Jennifer did need it. She met Simone at a cafe on King Street and told her everything. So let me get this straight, Simone said when she finished. This man told you he was falling for you, introduced you to his mother, made everything official with HR, and then got scared and pulled back the second someone challenged the relationship. That's the summary, yes. And you told him you were done unless he could trust what you had? I did. Simone leaned back in her chair. Good. You should be done. You deserve someone who's all in, not someone who panics every time things get hard. Jennifer stared into her coffee. I know that. I do. But Simone, you should have seen his face when he talked about his father dying. About Victoria leaving. He's so scared of being abandoned again that he abandons people first. It's not about me. It's about him not believing he deserves to be chosen. That's sad, and I feel for him. But that doesn't mean you should accept being pushed away every time he gets scared. You're not responsible for fixing his fear. He is. I know. Do you? Because you have this look on your face like you're thinking about going back to him and accepting whatever scraps of affection he's willing to give between panic attacks. Jennifer looked up sharply. That's not what I'm thinking. Then what are you thinking? I'm thinking that I love him. The words came out quiet but certain. I'm thinking that I fell in love with Christopher Mitchell somewhere between the wrong coffee and the right one. Between Savannah and late nights rebuilding investor packages. Between meeting his mother and him cooking dinner in my apartment. And I'm thinking that love doesn't just disappear because someone gets scared. Simone's expression softened. Oh, honey. But I also know that loving him doesn't mean accepting less than I deserve. It doesn't mean letting him keep me at arm's length because it's safer for him. Jennifer's voice strengthened. So I'm going to finish this job. I'm going to help him nail the board presentation because I committed to it and I keep my commitments. And then I'm going to walk away. Because if Christopher can't figure out that I'm worth the risk, then he doesn't deserve me. Now that, Simone said, is the Jennifer I know. The board presentation was scheduled for August 5th. Jennifer spent the final week making sure every detail was perfect. Every slide, every data point, every backup plan. She worked late nights alone now, since Christopher had stopped staying after hours. Whether that was to avoid her or because he couldn't bear to be in the same room with what they'd lost, she didn't know. On the night of August 4th, Jennifer was the last person in the office. She'd just finished the final review when Christopher's door opened. He stood in the doorway, looking exhausted and raw in a way she'd never seen. You're still here, he said. Last check before tomorrow. Everything's ready. Christopher moved into the main office space. Jennifer, can we talk? Please? We're talking now. Really talk. Not this professional distance we've been hiding behind for 2 weeks. Jennifer saved her work and closed her laptop. Okay. Talk. Christopher sat on the edge of her desk, close but not touching. I've been thinking about what you said. About me choosing the company over us. About being scared. And you were right? About all of it. He ran a hand through his hair. When Richard showed up and started talking about optics and scandal, I panicked. All I could think about was losing everything again. The company, the expansion, you. So I did what I always do. I tried to control the situation by pushing away anything that felt like a risk. Jennifer stayed quiet, letting him continue. My father died 7 years ago, and I never really dealt with it. I just threw myself into work and told myself that success was enough. That if I could build something permanent, something that couldn't leave me, I'd be okay. Christopher's voice cracked. But buildings and businesses and billion-dollar deals don't hold you when you're lonely. They don't laugh at your terrible jokes or challenge you to be better or make you feel like maybe you're worth loving after all. Christopher. I'm not done. Please. He looked at her with desperate honesty. You asked me to trust us. To trust that what we had was worth fighting for. And I couldn't do it. Not because I didn't believe in us, but because I was terrified that the moment I let myself need you, really need you, you'd realize I wasn't worth staying for. Just like Victoria did. Jennifer's heart ached. I'm not Victoria. I know. I know that. You've proven it every single day for 3 months. You stayed through impossible deadlines and Singapore falling through and Richard Donovan showing up to cause trouble. You stayed when staying was hard. And I repaid that by asking you to hide. By treating our relationship like a liability instead of the best thing that's happened to me in years. He slid off the desk and knelt in front of her chair. The gesture was so unexpected, so vulnerable, that Jennifer's breath caught. I'm so sorry, Christopher said. I'm sorry I let fear make me stupid. I'm sorry I hurt you. I'm sorry I made you feel like you were anything less than the most important person in my life. His hands came up to cradle her face. Jennifer Kirk, you are worth every risk. Every complication. Every difficult conversation and every judgment from people who don't understand. You're worth choosing every single day, and I'm sorry it took me 2 miserable weeks to figure that out. Tears were streaming down Jennifer's face. You really hurt me. I know. I know I did. And if you can't forgive me, if you're done, I'll understand. I'll accept it. But I needed you to know that these 2 weeks without you have been the worst of my life. Worse than Victoria leaving. Worse than losing my father. Because this time, I knew exactly what I was losing and I chose it anyway out of fear. And I will regret that for the rest of my life. Jennifer pulled his hands away from her face, and she saw hope die in his eyes. Then she stood and pulled him to his feet. I love you, she said. I'm angry with you and hurt and I don't know if I can trust you not to panic the next time things get hard. But I love you. And I think you're worth fighting for too. Christopher's expression transformed. You love me? I love you. Even though you're stubborn and scared and you made the worst possible decision 2 weeks ago. She put her hands on his chest, feeling his heart race. But Christopher, if we do this, if we try again, you have to promise me something. Anything. Promise me that the next time you get scared, you talk to me. You don't pull back and make decisions for both of us. You trust me enough to be honest about what you're feeling, and we figure it out together. Can you do that? Yes. I promise. Jennifer, I promise I will never shut you out like that again. And you have to mean it. Because I can't go through this again. I won't. I mean it. I swear to you, I mean it. Christopher's hands came up to frame her face again. I love you. I'm in love with you. And I want to spend every day proving that you can trust me with your heart. Jennifer smiled through her tears. Then kiss me and let's stop wasting time being apart. Christopher kissed her like a man who'd been drowning and just found air. Deep and desperate and full of promise. Jennifer kissed him back with everything she'd been holding in for 2 terrible weeks, pouring her love and anger and hope into the connection between them. When they broke apart, Christopher rested his forehead against hers. I'm going to do better, he whispered. I'm going to be the man you deserve. You already are. You just have to believe it. They stood together in the empty office, holding each other as the city lights glittered below them, and Jennifer felt hope bloom fierce and bright in her chest. Tomorrow they'd face the board together. Tomorrow they'd prove that the Pacific expansion was sound and the company was strong and their relationship was nobody's business but theirs. But tonight, they'd found their way back to each other. And that was enough. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more emotional and heart-touching stories that speak to the soul, and share your thoughts in the comments to tell us which story you want to hear next. Now let us continue. The boardroom was silent. Christopher stood at the head of the table, the final slide of the Pacific expansion presentation glowing on the screen behind him, and waited for the verdict. Jennifer sat to his left, her tablet ready, her expression calm and professional even though he knew her heart was racing as fast as his. Board Chairman Robert Hayes leaned back in his chair. That was impressive, Christopher. Very impressive. You've addressed every concern we raised last quarter, restructured the investor package brilliantly, and the projected growth is substantial. Thank you, sir. However, Hayes looked around the table. There's been some talk. Some concerns about your judgment lately. About your personal life affecting your professional decisions. Christopher felt Jennifer tense beside him. He reached under the table and squeezed her hand once, briefly. If you're referring to my relationship with Jennifer, then yes, let's address it directly. Christopher stood straighter. 3 months ago, Jennifer Kirk became my executive assistant. She's been the best hire I've made in 6 years. She caught the discrepancy in the Chin deal that could have cost us millions. She restructured this entire expansion package when Singapore fell through. She's brilliant, dedicated, and absolutely essential to this company's success. He looked at Jennifer, and she looked back with steady confidence. 2 months ago, we started dating, Christopher continued. We informed HR immediately. We've maintained complete professionalism at work. And yes, we're in a relationship. If that affects your confidence in my leadership, then I need you to ask yourselves why. Because the issue isn't that I'm dating my assistant. The issue is that you're uncomfortable with the fact that I found someone who makes me better at everything I do, including running this company. Hayes raised an eyebrow. That's quite a statement. It's the truth. Jennifer doesn't just support my work. She challenges it. She makes me think harder, plan better, see angles I miss. The Pacific expansion is stronger because of her insights. This company is stronger because she's part of it. And I'm better because she's in my life. Christopher met each board member's gaze. So if you want to vote against this expansion because you don't like my personal choices, that's your prerogative. But you'd be making a mistake. The silence stretched. Then board member Patricia Chen, no relation to Chen Industries, smiled. I think what Robert is trying to say, albeit poorly, is that we wanted to make sure this relationship wasn't a distraction. That it wasn't affecting your judgment. She looked at the presentation materials. Clearly it isn't. If anything, you seem more focused than you've been in years. The work speaks for itself. So we're approving the expansion? Christopher asked. Hayes nodded. Unanimously. Congratulations, Christopher. You've built something remarkable here. Don't screw it up by letting good people go. He glanced at Jennifer when he said it, and she smiled. The meeting adjourned. As the board members filed out, Patricia stopped by Jennifer's seat. He's right, you know, she said quietly. About you making him better. I've sat on this board for 8 years, and I've never seen Christopher fight for anything the way he just fought for you. Jennifer felt warmth spread through her chest. Thank you. When the room finally emptied, Christopher pulled Jennifer to her feet and kissed her thoroughly. "We did it," he said against her lips. "You did it. That speech was all you. That speech was me finally figuring out what matters." Christopher pulled back to look at her. "Jennifer, I have something I need to ask you. Christopher, if you're about to propose in a boardroom the same day we got the expansion approved, I'm going to say no on principle." He laughed. "Not proposing. Not yet. But I am asking you to move out of the assistant position." Jennifer's stomach dropped. "What? Before you panic, let me finish." Christopher took both her hands. "You're overqualified to be anyone's assistant. You should be running your own division. So I want to create a new position. Vice President of Strategic Development. You'd oversee the Pacific expansion, report directly to me, and have the authority to build your own team. Significant raise, profit sharing, corner office, the works." Jennifer stared at him. "You want to promote me? I want to put you where you belong. At the table, not behind it. Making decisions, not just implementing mine." He squeezed her hands. "And before you ask, this has nothing to do with us dating. I was planning this before we got together. You're that good, Jennifer. It's time everyone else recognized it too." Tears pricked Jennifer's eyes. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes. Then say you'll have dinner with me tonight to celebrate. Somewhere nice. Somewhere I can tell you properly how much I love you without a boardroom table between us." "Yes," Jennifer said. "To all of it. Yes." That night, Christopher took her to slightly north of Broad, one of Charleston's most elegant restaurants. They ate shrimp and grits and she-crab soup while he told her his plans for the expansion, for the company, for the future he wanted to build. "I've been thinking about my father a lot lately," Christopher said over dessert. "About what he taught me. He used to say that success without someone to share it with is just expensive loneliness. He sounds wise. He was. And he'd like you. He'd appreciate how you don't let me get away with anything. How you call me on my mistakes and push me to be better." Christopher reached across the table for her hand. "I wasted 7 years being afraid to need anyone. Afraid to trust that someone could stay. You've proven me wrong in every possible way, and I'm grateful for that every single day." Jennifer's throat tightened. "I'm not going anywhere." "I know. I finally believe that." He pulled something from his pocket. "Not a ring, but a key. Move in with me. I know it's fast, I know we've only been together 3 months, but I don't want to spend another night in that empty house when I could be with you. We'll take it slow in every other way, but let me wake up next to you. Let me come home to you. Please." Jennifer looked at the key, then at Christopher's hopeful face, and felt her heart overflow. "Okay," she said. "Yes. I'll move in with you." Christopher's smile was incandescent. "Really? Really? But I'm bringing my furniture. Your place is gorgeous but it has no personality. Bring it all. Bring everything. Make it ours." They moved her in the following weekend. Christopher's waterfront house transformed with her books on the shelves, her photos on the walls, her laughter-filling rooms that had been silent too long. They christened the kitchen by cooking together, the living room by falling asleep on the couch during a movie, the bedroom in ways that made Jennifer blush to remember the next morning. The Pacific expansion launched in September. Jennifer's new team exceeded every projection, and by October, Mitchell Global had secured 3 new major contracts in Southeast Asia. On a cool evening in late October, 4 months after Jennifer had walked into Christopher's office with the right coffee and changed everything, they stood on the back deck watching the sun set over Charleston Harbor. "I have something for you," Christopher said. "It's not my birthday. It's better than a birthday." He pulled out a small velvet box, and Jennifer's heart stopped. Christopher opened it to reveal a stunning ring, simple and elegant with a single perfect diamond. "Jennifer Kirk, 4 months ago you walked into my life and refused to accept the walls I'd built around my heart. You challenged me and supported me and loved me even when I was too scared to love you back properly. You've made me believe in second chances and forever and all the things I stopped believing in years ago." He got down on one knee right there on the deck, with the sunset painting the sky gold and pink behind him. "I don't want to wait," Christopher continued. "I don't want to be careful or slow or any of the sensible things people probably think we should be. I know what I want, and it's you. Every day. For the rest of my life. Will you marry me?" Jennifer was crying and laughing and nodding all at once. "Yes. Yes, of course yes." Christopher slid the ring onto her finger and stood, pulling her into his arms and kissing her as the sun dipped below the horizon. "I love you," he whispered against her lips. "I'm going to love you for the rest of my life. I love you too. So much." They stood together on the deck, holding each other as the stars came out over the water, and Jennifer thought about all the moments that had led them here. The wrong coffee and the right one. The late nights and early mornings. The fear and the fighting and the choosing each other anyway. What are you thinking? Christopher asked. I'm thinking about my father. About how he'd be so happy right now. How he'd probably make some terrible joke about you being a catch and me finally settling down. Christopher smiled. Tell me one of his jokes. They're really bad. I don't care. Tell me anyway. So Jennifer told him, and Christopher laughed, and somewhere Jennifer felt certain her father was laughing too. 6 months later, on a perfect April afternoon in 2025, they married in a small ceremony at Middleton Place. Christopher's mother cried. Jennifer's best friend Simone stood as maid of honor and gave a toast about stubbornness and second chances. The Pacific expansion had exceeded all projections, and Jennifer had just been named Chief Operating Officer of Mitchell Global. But none of that mattered as much as the moment Christopher took her hands and promised to love her, trust her, and choose her every day for the rest of their lives. I promise to never let fear make me push you away, he said, his voice steady and sure. I promise to be worthy of the trust you've placed in me. And I promise to spend every day grateful that you walked into my office and refused to accept anything less than the truth. Jennifer's vows were simpler. I promise to stay. Through the hard days and the easy ones. Through success and struggle. Through every moment you doubt yourself, I'll be there to remind you who you are. I choose you, Christopher. Today and always. When they kissed as husband and wife, the small gathering erupted in applause, but Jennifer barely heard it. All she heard was Christopher whispering against her lips, "Thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for being worth the wait," she whispered back. They honeymooned in Paris, scattering the rest of her father's ashes at the Seine just as she'd done 3 years before. But this time she wasn't alone. This time Christopher stood beside her, holding her hand as she said goodbye and thank you, and I found him, Dad. I found someone who stays. That night, Christopher took her to slightly north of Broad, one of Charleston's most elegant restaurants. They ate shrimp and grits and she crab soup while he told her his plans for the expansion, for the company, for the future he wanted to build. I've been thinking about my father a lot lately, Christopher said over dessert. About what he taught me. He used to say that success without someone to share it with is just expensive loneliness. He sounds wise. He was. And he'd like you. He'd appreciate how you don't let me get away with anything. How you call me on my mistakes and push me to be better. Christopher reached across the table for her hand. I wasted 7 years being afraid to need anyone. Afraid to trust that someone could stay. You've proven me wrong in every possible way, and I'm grateful for that every single day. Jennifer's throat tightened. I'm not going anywhere. I know. I finally believe that. He pulled something from his pocket. Not a ring, but a key. Move in with me. I know it's fast, I know we've only been together 3 months, but I don't want to spend another night in that empty house when I could be with you. We'll take it slow in every other way, but let me wake up next to you. Let me come home to you. Please. Jennifer looked at the key, then at Christopher's hopeful face, and felt her heart overflow. Okay, she said. Yes. I'll move in with you. Christopher's smile was incandescent. Really? Really? But I'm bringing my furniture. Your place is gorgeous, but it has no personality. Bring it all. Bring everything. Make it ours. They moved her in the following weekend. Christopher's waterfront house transformed with her books on the shelves, her photos on the walls, her laughter filling rooms that had been silent too long. They christened the kitchen by cooking together, the living room by falling asleep on the couch during a movie, the bedroom in ways that made Jennifer blush to remember the next morning. The Pacific expansion launched in September. Jennifer's new team exceeded every projection, and by October, Mitchell Global had secured 3 new major contracts in Southeast Asia. On a cool evening in late October, 4 months after Jennifer had walked into Christopher's office with the right coffee and changed everything, they stood on the back deck watching the sun set over Charleston Harbor. I have something for you, Christopher said. It's not my birthday. It's better than a birthday. He pulled out a small velvet box, and Jennifer's heart stopped. Christopher opened it to reveal a stunning ring, simple and elegant with a single perfect diamond. Jennifer Kirk, 4 months ago you walked into my life and refused to accept the walls I'd built around my heart. You challenged me and supported me and loved me even when I was too scared to love you back properly. You've made me believe in second chances and forever and all the things I stopped believing in years ago. He got down on one knee right there on the deck, with the sunset painting the sky gold and pink behind him. I don't want to wait, Christopher continued. I don't want to be careful or slow or any of the sensible things people probably think we should be. I know what I want, and it's you. Every day. For the rest of my life. Will you marry me? Jennifer was crying and laughing and nodding all at once. Yes. Yes, of course yes. Christopher slid the ring onto her finger and stood, pulling her into his arms and kissing her as the sun dipped below the horizon. I love you, he whispered against her lips. I'm going to love you for the rest of my life. I love you too. So much. They stood together on the deck, holding each other as the stars came out over the water, and Jennifer thought about all the moments that had led them here. The wrong coffee and the right one. The late nights and early mornings. The fear and the fighting and the choosing each other anyway. What are you thinking? Christopher asked. I'm thinking about my father. About how he'd be so happy right now. How he'd probably make some terrible joke about you being a catch and me finally settling down. Christopher smiled. Tell me one of his jokes. They're really bad. I don't care. Tell me anyway. So Jennifer told him, and Christopher laughed, and somewhere Jennifer felt certain her father was laughing too. 6 months later, on a perfect April afternoon in 2025, they married in a small ceremony at Middleton Place. Christopher's mother cried. Jennifer's best friend Simone stood as maid of honor and gave a toast about stubbornness and second chances. The Pacific expansion had exceeded all projections, and Jennifer had just been named Chief Operating Officer of Mitchell Global. But none of that mattered as much as the moment Christopher took her hands and promised to love her, trust her, and choose her every day for the rest of their lives. I promise to never let fear make me push you away, he said, his voice steady and sure. I promise to be worthy of the trust you've placed in me. And I promise to spend every day grateful that you walked into my office and refused to accept anything less than the truth. Jennifer's vows were simpler. I promise to stay. Through the hard days and the easy ones. Through success and struggle. Through every moment you doubt yourself, I'll be there to remind you who you are. I choose you, Christopher. Today and always. When they kissed as husband and wife, the small gathering erupted in applause, but Jennifer barely heard it. All she heard was Christopher whispering against her lips, "Thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for being worth the wait," she whispered back. They honeymooned in Paris, scattering the rest of her father's ashes at the Seine just as she'd done 3 years before. But this time she wasn't alone. This time Christopher stood beside her, holding her hand as she said goodbye and thank you, and I found him, Dad. I found someone who stays.